So I'm going to provide a brief introduction for instructors of how to navigate the LimeSpring system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and log in, and then I'm going to enter my credentials and hit go. Now that I'm logged in, I have my dashboard. If I want, I can click here to go to the library. This is what the students see when they log in. But I'm going to navigate to one of my demo sections, Math 100 demo class. Now, once I click on that, I'm taken to my course roster, and I can see that I have 16 students. I can see their names, I can see when they were last active, I can see the days since the last activity, and a few other data points that might be useful to me. If I'd like to modify any of my users, let's say I want to change their name because I realize there's a mistake or need to update their email, I can just click on their name and navigate directly to their profile. Before we move on from this screen, there's something that's really helpful. If I want to send a blast email to the whole group, I can click on the Select All, hit the Email Selected button, enter a subject line. If I want, I can remove this, I can leave it. What this bracketed username does is it automatically inputs their first name for each of the individual students. I'll type my message. If I want, I can attach their report to the bottom of the email that I send them. So each student will get his or her individual report at the bottom. And then I would hit send. Now, if I want to dig in on the student's results, I go up here to this tab, and this tab takes me to the results page. Now, as you can see, I've got all the student names, I've got their book exam scores, their workbook scores, their lesson quiz attempted. Just to be clear, the way LimeSpring is structured is they have several lessons each week that teach the skills. Each of those lessons contain quizzes. So when I look at this lesson quiz attempts, the average high score on the quizzes and their average stars earned, these are all telling me about the quizzes that they're doing that are embedded in the lessons. Once they've completed all of the lessons, they're able to access the workbook. The workbook is only unlocked when they've completed all the lessons, and it basically takes all the concepts they've learned and it puts them into problems that are focused on real-world applications. The lesson quizzes and the workbook, the students are able to try as many times as they'd like. The intention is to enable the students to gain confidence working through problems to better understand the concepts, and explanations are readily available to make sure that students aren't getting stuck or bogged down without understanding concepts. Once they've done the workbook, they can move on to the book exam, which is a timed test, and they only have one attempt at it. The idea being working them gradually through low-stake environments into a much higher stake environment where they now have to show that they've demonstrate that they've learned the content. We think of the workbook and lesson quizzes as formative assessments and the book exam as a summative assessment. Now, as we can see, all the students have done really well this week, but let me see if I can find a week where they haven't done quite as well. Okay, so in this week we see that students have also done quite well, but Dan F., he didn't do so great on the book exam. And so he got a yellow. And so what happens is, if anything from 80 to 100% is green, anything from 60 to 80 is yellow, and anything below 60 or incomplete is red. Because let's take a look at how Dan's actual scores on this week are. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and load up Dan's profile. So as I look at Dan, he's actually done really well in the course. Here, this I'm not going to worry about because I didn't actually assign any lessons or workbook on the week that had the midterm. I just assigned a book exam. But I can see that he's done in general really well in the different weeks and the lessons and the workbooks. But every now and then he doesn't do so great on the book exam. So let me just go ahead and click on one of his book exams, his weeks. So now I can drill down. I can see that, here's probably what's happening. He's got great scores, but his attempts are high numbers, and that's telling me that he might be having a little bit of trouble with the content. And in particular, it looks like he's having trouble with the Intro to Algebra, which has simplifying expressions and translating sentences. I'm starting to think that Dan struggles with converting a word problem into an equation. And if I'd like, I can drill down on any of these different assignments he's done to get a closer, more granular picture of how Dan's doing. So a good way to think of it is back a couple pages ago, we were at the very high level class view. And this gave me a snapshot of my entire class. And then I drilled down on Dan. And then I was able to drill down further and get a read on each individual assignment, and if I kept following this along, I could go all the way to the level of keystrokes that he used and what answer choices he chose for each problem in a quiz. The last thing I'll mention is that I have the ability to manage attempts. And what this means is if I think, let's say Dan accidentally completed a book exam out of line, or he misunderstood something, or frankly, I just want him to get more practice because I've been working with him in class or in an office hour session, and I'd like him to go back and retake a book exam where he did a poor job. I can delete this from his library, and then he'll be able to re-access the book exam and take it again from scratch. And note that the book exams, the problems will rotate so that Dan won't get the same set of problems the next time he takes the book exam. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful and informative, and that it provides the tools you need to get a better understanding of the LimeSpring system.